You know when you're wandering around York and you see all those like wonky medieval buildings and think, wow, this place is old.
Yeah, totally.
Well, buckle up because we're about to go way, way back, think togas, not tunics.
Yeah, right.
This whole amazing city, it pretty much owes its first breath, its actual foundation, to the Romans.
That's absolutely right. I mean, picture this. It's around 71 AD, maybe give or take a year, and the Roman Ninth Legion, Hispana,
Sounds impressive, like a gladiator with a really good agent.
doesn't it just... Anyway, because they were scattered around, they land on this slightly raised bit of land, sort of snuggles right between the rivers Ouse and Foss, and a light bulb goes off.
In Latin, presumably.
Yeah, Eureka,
Yeah.
or, something like that. Bingo, maybe. Prime real estate, rivers for easy deliveries, and, like, built-in moats. Genius.
So forget your shambles and your York Minster for just a second. Imagine instead, like, a proper military camp. Eboracum, they called it?
Eboracum.
Yeah.
Bit of mouth.
Try saying that after a few pints at the pub. It started purely as a military thing, right? But then it just sort of grew.
Exactly. Like a surprisingly successful reality TV star, it quickly became the main civilian town up north. And get this, it was a top dog for over 350 years.
Wow, 350 years. That's longer than most. Well, lots of things these days.
Pretty much. And if you were a Roman general trying to keep an eye on the feisty tribes up in northern Britain, York was your command center.
Like a HQ?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Think of it as the Roman equivalent of a, strategically important modern military base, but maybe with better sandals.
And presumably worse plumbing initially.
Huh, probably. But yeah, it was the linchpin for moving troops and supplies by land and river. You can almost picture the Roman delivery trucks, ox-drawn carts maybe, trundling in and out.
It's still wild they just picked this spot. Was it just luck, or were they really smart about geography?
Oh, they were savvy. Definitely savvy. This bit of slightly high ground, turns out it was left over from glaciers retreating ages before.
So nature did the groundwork.
Kinda, yeah. Talk about convenient. And it happened to be right where you could easily cross the River Ouse, a natural crossroads.
Makes sense.
And then the Romans, being the road-building fanatics they were, they paved the way. The main road heading north out of Roman York, amazingly, it's like almost the exact same route that the modern A1 and the East Coast Main Line follow today.
No way. That's genuinely mind-blowing. So next time my train's delayed...
Lame Roman town planning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We know there were people here before the Romans, bits and pieces found, but it really feels like their arrival is when the story of this York, the one we know, properly kicks off.
Yeah, it's a definite turning point.
Okay, so 71 AD, the Ninth Legion pitches up. What did this first Roman fortress actually look like? Was it just a load of tents?
Oh, far from it.
Okay.
This is a serious military setup. The initial fortress probably covered around 50 acres.
50 acres? That's huge. That's a hefty chunk of what we now think of as, like, central York.
It really is. And its position wasn't accidental. It was all about dominating those rivers. The Ouse and the Foss were basically their highways and keeping an eye on the whole area. Think of it like the ultimate high-security gated community, Roman style.
Right. And it wasn't just a few guys hanging out, was it? We're talking a proper army.
Oh, absolutely. A full Roman legion, you're looking at maybe 5,000 to 6,000 soldiers.
Wow.
And that's not even counting the auxiliary troops, the support staff, if you will. So, yeah, a significant military population right from the start.
So what were the walls like? Just mud.
Initially, probably timber defenses. Wooden walls, watchtowers, a bit like a massive frontier fort from an old Western movie.
Okay, I can picture that.
But these Romans, they were nothing if not ambitious. They liked things built to last, so pretty soon they'd be upgrading to much more impressive stone fortifications. Some parts lasted for centuries.
Gotta admire that Roman sense of permanence. So inside this wooden, then stone fortress, what was the layout? Was it all neat and tidy?
Spot on. Roman forts usually followed a pretty standard blueprint.
Yeah.
Very organized.
Right.
You'd have the headquarters building, the Principia, think of it as the Roman command center, and maybe a town hall rolled into one.
Okay.
Then the commander's residence, the Praetorium, basically the general's posh house.
Nice work if you can get it.
And of course, loads and loads of barrack blocks for the soldiers, granaries to keep everyone fed, and almost certainly a bathhouse.
A Roman bathhouse in Yorkshire.
Yeah, because even Roman soldiers liked a good soak and a chat after a hard day of,
Yeah.
well, marching and building things.
I bet. Any, like, standout features about the York Fortress specifically? Anything unusual?
Funny you should ask. Yeah, the Basilica, which is part of that headquarters building, the Principia, it was unusually wide for its time, nearly 24 meters or about 78 feet across.
That's pretty big.
It's a seriously impressive space. And archaeological digs, especially under and around York Minster, have turned up evidence of really grand Roman construction. They found the bases of at least 20 massive columns there.
20 columns. Wow. Gives you a real sense of the scale.
Definitely. You can almost hear the echoes of Roman sandals on marble. Well, maybe stone.
Okay, so you've got this mighty military base humming along, but a fort full of soldiers isn't exactly a bustling town on its own, is it?
No, not really.
That's where the civilians came in, right? Like moths to a very well-defended flame.
Exactly that. A large military base like Iberacum would have created a huge demand for all sorts of stuff. Food, tools, pottery, maybe even entertainment.
Souvenirs! My centurion went to Aberacum and all I got was this lousy tunic.
Probably. So, yeah, civilian settlement, the Canopy, sprang up just outside the fortress walls.
The canopy. Like cabins?
Sort of, yeah. That means huts or booths initially. Think of it less like a planned Roman suburb and more like the kind of organic settlements you still see around big military bases today. A bit more lively, maybe chaotic.
Okay. So who lived there?
It would have been a real mix. Traders, craftsmen, the families of soldiers. Roman soldiers weren't exactly monks, you know.
Okay. Got families, partners?
Exactly. And all sorts of other people just looking to make a living off the back of this huge garrison.
So a bit like a frontier town meets army surplus store, maybe. And how do we know about this area? Where did they find stuff?
Archaeology tells the tale mostly. We found evidence of this settlement spreading out along the main roads leading from the fortress, especially going southwest and across the river.
Across the Ouse.
Yeah. And the discovery of cemeteries outside the fort's boundaries also helps us understand how big this civilian population got. I mean, people lived there, they died there.
Grim, but useful for archaeologists. So this civilian bit wasn't as neatly planned as some other Roman towns we hear about.
It seems not, especially in the early stages. Early Eboracum seems to have grown more organically, probably because its main reason for existing was to serve the military. It wasn't initially designed as a purely civilian city, so the planning seems a bit more fluid.
Okay, so York grows from this army base into a proper little town, bit messy around the edges maybe, but what made it more than just another Roman tit stop? How did it become so important?
Well, its strategic importance, being key to controlling the north, eventually translated into administrative importance. It became a major hub for the Roman authorities running things up here.
Running in the north.
Yeah. And eventually, it even became the capital of Britannia Inferior, that's Lower Britain, basically the HQ for the regional government.
So Roman bureaucrats in York dealing with paperwork, probably actual papyrus scrolls back then, not iPads.
Imagine the filing.
Yeah.
But yes, this meant serious Roman infrastructure must have been built, more than just roads and forts.
Like what?
Well, to govern a large area, you need officials, administrators, probably law courts, tax offices, the whole 9 yards of Roman bureaucracy.
Sounds thrilling.
Maybe not thrilling, but important. And the fact that Roman emperors themselves actually visited York, like Hadrian, and crucially Septimius Severus.
Oh, yeah, the guy who died here.
That's the one. Severus kicked the bucket right here in York in 211 AD while he was up here campaigning. That's a huge indicator of the city's status. When the emperor shows up, let alone dies there, it's a big deal.
The emperor popping by and then, well, staying permanently. That's like the president deciding to retire to York or something. Must have caused a right stir.
Definitely would have. Probably boosted the souvenir trade again.
And having legions based here for so long, that must have really juiced the local economy, right?
Without a doubt. Those thousands of Roman soldiers were consumers. They needed feeding, clothing, entertainment. All that spending would have stimulated the local economy and helped that civilian settlement, the Cannabe, really grow and flourish.
Classic military spending effect.
Even back then, yeah.
Yeah.
A big driver of local growth.
So we've got soldiers, civilians, officials, even the odd emperor turning up. What was everyday life actually like in Roman York? For your average Joe or maybe Titus?
Well, for both soldiers and civilians, daily life would have been this blend of Roman ways and local British customs. You'd have had markets buzzing with activity.
Selling what?
Food, probably some interesting new things the Romans brought with them. Locally made pottery, but also fancy imported stuff from all over the Roman Empire. Imagine seeing things from, like, the Mediterranean turning up in Yorkshire.
Exotic olives in Eboracum? Sounds like a decent upgrade. And what about beliefs? Was everyone just worshiping Jupiter and Mars?
Not at all. We see clear signs of religious diversity. Archaeology's turned up altars dedicated to the standard Roman gods, sure, but also to local British deities. And here's a really cool bit.
Go on.
They even found an altar dedicated to Serapis,
Serapis? Who's that?
an Egyptian god, which tells you a lot about how far-reaching the Roman Empire's connections were, and the diverse mix of people living right here in York. It wasn't just Italians and Brits.
Ancient Egypt meets Yorkshire. You really wouldn't expect that. Amazing. And when it came to, the inevitable end, burials, what do we know?
Burial practices were pretty varied, too, seemed to reflect different social classes and maybe beliefs. We found everything from simple burials with maybe just a pot to really elaborate graves with lots of expensive goods.
Showing off even in death.
Seems like it. And finding things like stone coffins, sarcophagi, like the one belonging to a woman named Aelia Severoyer. We actually know her name. It gives us a really personal connection, doesn't it, to people living here nearly 2,000 years ago.
Alias Severa. Wow. So even in death, you could see who was who in Roman York. And all these finds, the pottery, the gods, the burials, they paint a picture of a place that was properly plugged into the wider world, yeah, not some lonely outpost.
Exactly. The archaeological evidence consistently shows trade links, connections stretching right across Roman Britain and into the wider Roman world. Goods, people, ideas constantly flowing in and out of Iberacum.
It was a truly significant city for its time.
It's incredible to think of all that hustle and bustle happening right under our feet today. But, all good things. Roman rule eventually ended. What happened? Did they just get bored and leave?
Huh. Not quite boredom, though maybe a bit of Roman wanderlust kicked in eventually. No, the decline of Roman York in the 4th century AD, so like the 300s, was really tied to bigger problems across the whole Roman Empire. Like what?
Things like increasing economic problems, political instability, emperors getting knocked off left, right, and center, and growing pressure on the empire's frontiers from various groups.
So Britain became less important.
Essentially, yeah. Resources were noted elsewhere.
Yeah.
Roman legions and the whole administrative setup were gradually pulled back from Britain to deal with more pressing fires closer to home.
The focus shifted, and York kind of got left behind by the empire.
Pretty much, the legions marched away.
But even though the Romans packed up their togas and left, they left a massive mark, didn't they? It wasn't like York just vanished.
Absolutely not. Even after Roman rule officially ended, the legacy of Eboracum was huge. It continued to shape York's future. The basic street layout, parts of the stone fortifications they'd built, and just the fact that it had been a major city for centuries. All that played a crucial role in how the city developed afterwards, through the Anglo-Saxon and Viking periods and beyond.
It's just amazing, isn't it, to think that we're walking the same ground, maybe even some of the same street lines, as Roman soldiers and citizens did all those centuries ago. Really makes you look at those medieval streets differently.
It really does. Gives you a whole new layer to appreciate.
Well, that's been a fantastic deep dive into Roman York. Honestly, it gives you such a fresh appreciation for the history literally beneath our feet here.
It's the foundation, isn't it?
It really is. And look, if you are exploring York now and you want all the insider tips, the best current stuff, make sure to check out Alistair's brilliant book, York Local Knowledge, Must-Do Top 10s and the Vouchers to Get Them for Less.
Good plug.
Hey, it's genuinely useful. It's available on iBooks or Google Books. Seriously, it's your go-to guide for making the most of a visit today, knowing all this history.
Indeed. York's Roman past is such a fundamental part of its story, isn't it? A foundation upon which, centuries of other fascinating history have been built. It's a story that still resonates. And hey, if you need the perfect base to actually explore all these layers of history, why not book a holiday home right in the city? Check out www.houseofyork.org.
Nice one. Get yourself settled right in the heart of it all. Perfect for soaking up nearly 2,000 years of history.